Looking at these notes that we finished up in the last video here, you're going to see we have 5 different angle pairs that we're working on. Vertical, straight, alternate interior, alternate exterior, and corresponding. And what you're going to see is that they're all congruent except straight angles. They're supplementary. And the reason I point that out is because we're going to label this picture here, okay? And I want you to, using what we know on those angles, okay, be able to tell if things are congruent or supplementary. Notice when parallel lines are crossed by a transversal. Anytime it's parallel lines and that transversal that cuts them, parallel lines, transversal, any 2 pairs of angles formed will either be congruent or supplementary. Congruent or supplementary. It's only 2 choices. And the reason that's important is because I don't want you to overthink this stuff, okay? Parallel. A lot of times with parallel lines you will see a little arrow kind of in there saying that they're parallel. But the first thing I look for is vertical angles, because vertical angles are the ones opposite, okay? So if I look at 75 right here, its opposite angle, because these are 2 intersecting lines, that's its vertical angle. Vertical angles are congruent. So I know this is 75 degrees. Now, if I want to find this angle right here, notice that this is a straight line, okay? These 2 angles are a straight line. So over here, I know they're going to be supplementary. They add to 180. So if I go 180 minus 75, this ends up being 105 degrees. These 2 are supplementary, add to 180 because it's a straight line. So are these 2. Okay? I know that little extra mark is there. I'm sorry. This is just 75 degrees. Now, look at 2 intersecting lines, the ones opposite each other, vertical. So just by knowing one angle, I could find these other 3. Now let's kind of bring in some of our other ones. One of the other pairs of angles that we know is corresponding. Corresponding angles hold the same matching corner, right? Same position. So if I look at 75 right here, it is above the parallel line to the left of the transversal. Come down to this section. Which angle is above the parallel line to the left of the transversal? Right here. Same matching corner, right? Therefore, they have to be the same. You could think of this one over here then as a vertical angle, or you could think about it as corresponding, below to the right, below to the right. We could do supplementary again to figure this one, or we could say, look at interior, if I look just on the inside, opposite sides of the transversal, alternate interior angles. Those are also congruent. Maybe I want to see this as a vertical angle. Maybe I can say, you know what, we have alternate exterior angles on opposite sides of the transversal, and they're both outside the parallel lines. So actually you have some choices. We knew one angle and we could identify all the rest. My hint to you is if you can do this first, because then you're not necessarily looking for one angle, you have them all listed. Okay? So let's just do a few examples. Practice finding the missing angles below. Be sure to justify. Okay, so it says line R is parallel to line S, so these 2 are parallel. Good, all of our angles come into play. The measure of angle 2 is 55 degrees. Well, if 2 is 55 degrees, 3 has to be 55 degrees. 1 here has to be 180 minus 55, which is 125, I believe. Let's see. If I added these together, yes. Okay, which means this would be 125. Okay, and I could keep going from there, but let's go over to our questions now. It said find the measure of angle 3. Well, I did. It's 55 degrees. How do we know? Well, I'm going to say, now, here's a little notation for you. That little M, that means measure of angle 3, equals, and I'm using equal here because I'm putting it a value. I'm not using the congruent sign because I'm giving it a numerical value. The measure of angle 3 is 55 degrees. How do we know? Well, it's vertical angles. I'm just going to say vertical angles. Good enough. In fact, I'm going to even abbreviate it more. Okay? Find the measure of angle 7. Okay. Well, if I'm looking at the measure of angle 7 here, okay, and I know the more you practice, the easier it'll get, okay? But I look at 3 and I look at 7 here. They're both below the parallel line, and they're to the left of the transversal. Well, that means this has to be 55 degrees as well. And the reason, so I'm going to say the measure of angle 7 equals 55 degrees. And the reason this time isn't vertical angles. They're holding the same spot. Below to the left, below to the left. That is corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. Alright, so next picture here. Here's 3 and 4. Again, it's saying that J is parallel to K, and that the measure of angle 5 is 102 degrees. What is the measure of angle 4? Okay, well, if I look at the relationship between angle 5 and angle 4, I notice that they're both on the inside of these parallel lines. One's above the transversal, one's below the transversal. They have to be equal. So the measure of angle 4 equals 102 degrees. And the reason? Well, again, both on the inside, opposite sides of transversal. These are alternate interior angles because they're on the inside. All right, find the measure of angle 1. Well, the measure of angle 1, again, holds the same position here, or is a vertical angle here. So you get to pick, okay? I'm going to say the measure of angle 1 equals 102 degrees. And I'll say corresponding angles again, but you could say vertical. In fact, up here, as I look at 2 and 7, they could have been alternate exterior. Okay? Alright, so again, excuse me, all these angle relationships are going to result in being congruent or supplementary. More congruent than supplementary. But we can use supplementary to figure out angles. Last one. Use a picture from questions 3 and 4, this one right here, to mark the following statements as true or false. If it's false, we want to explain why. Angle 2 and angle 8, are they corresponding? Do they hold the same position? Well, angle 2 is below and to the left. Angle 8 is also below but to the right. So we're going to say false. Okay? And we're just going to say not in matching corners. I think that's what we said in the front page. They're not in the same relative spot. Okay, so anything like that. How about angle 3 and angle 5? Well, angle 3 is right here, angle 5 is right here. Are they congruent angles? Angle 3 and angle 5. False. Okay. They're not congruent. They don't have the same measure. Okay. And they're going to be supplementary because they're going to be supplementary or congruent. And they're not congruent angles, and I'm going to say we don't have any interior same side transversal, so we're just going to say not a special pair of angles. Okay? They're not congruent, they're not vertical, they're not corresponding, they're not vertical, alternate interior, alternate exterior. They are supplementary, but not where they just form a straight line. Angle 1 and angle 8 are alternate interior angles. Well, they're alternate. Okay, they are alternate exterior angles. Alright, 2 more. Angles 5 and angle 8 are vertical. Yeah, look at that. They are vertical. And if they're true, we don't have to say anything, but they're opposite angles when lines intersect. Angle 1 and angle 7 are supplementary. All right, so the only definition, well, I shouldn't say the only definition. Supplementary angles add to 180 degrees. If I look at this one right here, if 1 and 4 are vertical, then that means angle 1 has to be 102 degrees. Okay? If I look at here at 5 and 7, that's a straight angle. So they have to add to 180. So if I went 180 minus 102, that would leave me 78 degrees. Supplementary angles, remember, add to 180 degrees. Do angle 1 and angle 7 add to 180? Yeah, they actually do. Okay? So, well, we don't have to say anything if it's true. All right, so with these angles, guys, if you know one, you can find a bunch of them. You're going to be able to solve for missing angles knowing these relationships. So take a few seconds and write down a couple thoughts to help you as you use these notes later on, know where to find them. But the focus really is on our pairs of special angle relationships.